I'm Tine Zekas.
And hey, I'm Ilika Follette. We are business owners and moms with corporate backgrounds, and we are all about getting Black women paid in both corporate and business.
And you're listening to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast.
Let's go.
All right. Welcome. Today, we are going to be digging into branding from the perspective of working in corporate. So this is that personal branding, right? We're not talking about marketing your business necessarily. This is like you are your brand, right?
Exactly.
But before we dig in, I always forget. I'm gonna start with I'm Tine, so you know who's who when if you're just listening. So I'm
Yeah.
Tine.
And I'm Ilika. And yeah, we're definitely going to get into because I want to, it's so important to talk about branding yourself in corporate because I think that people tend to connect branding just to business. But
Exactly.
your personal brand in corporate is a game changer when it comes to getting paid. And that's the thing that we want to talk about,
Yep.
getting Black women paid. So how does your personal brand impact you when it comes to getting paid in business and corporate and that sort of thing?
Yeah, and one of the things I find people often mention when they're talking about how to get ahead um, in the corporate space is mentorship. Oh, you got to find a mentor. You got to find a mentor, and that is crucial. But you also need those sponsors, right? You also need the people who are going to talk about you when you're not in the room, and that I think is where the personal brand comes in because you want to have there needs to be something that comes to mind when people say your name, right? When
Right.
people are talking in another room and they're like, "Oh, did you hear about that thing Ilika did?" People
Mhm.
need to be like, "Yeah, because she's on it, because she's XYZ," right? And so whatever that thing is that you want people to think about when you're not in the room, right? That's the branding stuff.
Yes, that's so true because it happens so often. Because think about it, you're not always there, right? So your manager may be there and 4 or 5 other people. Maybe your manager isn't the person that is always talking you up, but maybe you've done a project with, the senior director of HR. And now that senior director is coming in and speaking your name
Yeah.
based on something that you have highlighted or done that's specific to you. I have a close relative who essentially has a photographic memory. She literally can remember anything that happens and then can provide opinion and information on it, right? So let me tell it, she's always getting promoted. That's what it feels like. She, you know, like at this point, I think she's a I think she's like right below VP level at a major Fortune 100 company, right?
But I'm sure she's that go-to person for everything, right? Like, "Oh, do you know who would know about this?" "Oh, yeah, I do. It's
That's
this."
exactly it. So
Yeah.
she'll be in a meeting, even if it's she'll be in a meeting, right? And it's a meeting of all the, senior directors or VPs and even like the different presidents of the businesses will be in there,
Mhm.
right? And let's say that her area of expertise is the industry of powders, right? The company has a powders industry and a liquids industry and a chemicals industry, right?
Sure.
And so hers is powders. That's where she's working right now, all the things.
Mhm.
They'll be talking about liquids in this meeting and they'll be like, so let's call her Susie. So Susie, can you tell us about liquids? And she's like, well, I'm in powders. Yeah, but we think you have an opinion on this, right? And she'd be like, well, in this meeting on this date, here's what happened. And
Right.
here's why I think that. And so she's providing such insight and strategy that she is now the go-to person. That's not even her industry.
Right.
They're like, okay, she's gonna have an opinion that's valuable and provide strategy on this. This is her person. So she's branded herself as the person that knows about multiple different industries.
Mhm.
And this
Yeah.
is why the promotion keeps happening. So
Oh,
it comes down exactly to
right.
that. So
Right.
I would love to hear from you because you've been doing this for so long, for quite some time. What's the best way to brand yourself in corporate?
That's such a great question because right, not all of us have that photographic memory, right?
Right.
Like, what you were talking about just sounds like magic to me.
Right.
But I think the first piece is deciding what you want to be known for, right? You know, what are your goals? What are your career goals? What are your strengths, what are the things that you want to be working on,
Mhm.
so that you can well, and I mean, I guess I start everything with what are your values,
Right.
right? What are your main values? What are the things that are important to you? So no matter what we're doing with our personal branding, you're living into your values.
Right.
But then once you figure out, okay, these are my goals, these are my strengths. Now it's about how do I highlight those and not just in a I'm sure they'll notice kind of way,
Mhm.
but raise your hand for those projects. Let your manager know these are the kinds of things I want to be working on.
Mhm.
And I wanna be working on projects that get me visibility, right? Maybe in other departments,
Yeah.
right? That it's not just the people. Maybe the people on my team, I'm the go-to person for that kind of thing, but now we need other departments to know, "Hey, if you have a question about this, yeah, you better go to Tine because she's the expert on that," right? So it's
Right.
about making known what things you want to be showing off, and then show them off and tell people about it, right? We are we are always told
Exactly.
to, be humble and you don't wanna brag, but if you are not pointing out to others what you've done, nobody's there just trying to take notes on what you're doing. And so
Exactly.
you need to find a way to talk about your accomplishments that feels genuine and comfortable to you. And that does not mean minimizing it. We do a lot
Exactly.
of, "Oh, it wasn't that
Just
much work," or, "Oh, it
mhm.
was a team effort," right? We we do a lot of that, but you can say, "I
Exactly.
worked hard on it and it was excellent," right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
it doesn't have to be in the context of bragging, it can just be the facts. "Hey, when I came on this project, this was our, customer
Maybe
service call rate, and then after we knocked
mhm.
this out, it went down by this percent," right? You can throw out
Exactly.
those numbers, and you don't have to say, "'Cause I'm amazing,"
Right.
but, you can let people kind of fill in the fill in the
They
gaps and
fill
say,
in the blanks, right?
When I
They
came
feel
in and
a certain way.
implemented XYZ, this was the"
Mhm. Yep.
right?
Exactly. Mhm.
And even volunteering to present, right? Maybe take opportunities to demo for other
Yep.
departments. "Hey, this is what we've been working on,
Yep.
and, I wanna show you what we've done." Because
I
just
lo
taking those creating those opportunities to
yeah.
be visible.
I love that you talked about specifically around taking the opportunity to present and demo it and showing the lead, right? Stepping in and speaking up because what happens is many times, and it's sad, it kind of sucks sometimes. Many times the person that presents it or the person that speaks up about it is the
Yep.
person that gets the credit, you
Right.
know? And
Right,
so
and they may not be the person who did the most
right,
work on it.
exactly. So it looks like they did it all, and they might have sat back, did nothing. Because I remember when I was in college, and this is just a funny story. But when I was in college, when we were doing our senior project, right? We had our senior project, and then we were supposed to present on the senior project later.
Mhm,
Well, when we went to present, when we were doing the project, I was at every meeting. I was going to see the client, customer, me and this one other guy, right? We were pretty much doing everything. Come presentation time, here comes, happy go lucky girl over here wanting to act like she had done so much,
mhm,
and she was about to try and lead the presentation. So I
right.
was like, "Well, we're not doing that," right? Because I had to speak up.
Let's each present on what we did maybe or something.
Exactly, because if she leads it, now it looks like she was the one who did all these things, and
Right.
that's the real thing, right? And so I know in corporate sometimes it's tough to say to somebody, "Nah, I'm doing this," right? But
Mhm.
there are ways to say, "Hey, let's share the responsibility of
Yep,
presenting this so that we're showing that, this is a team effort and or so that we're really getting the point across. Because sometimes the person that didn't do it, they don't really know the intricacies of
yeah,
it,
yeah.
right?
Well, and sometimes the system is set up to have kind of a default of who's gonna present, right? Maybe it's your manager, right? "I'm gonna go report
Mhm.
to whatever about the progress," and you can say, "Hey, would it be helpful if I come to that meeting too, and I can
Mhm.
fill in the details?" Right? You can say,
Yes.
"I know that you're the person who normally reports back
Mhm.
on our status or whatever," and you can say, "I'd love to be in that meeting, and that way I can answer any questions that come up."
Right.
Right, and you can just sort of skip the middleman, right? There's no reason your manager has to be the one
Mhm.
presenting on what you did and what you and
Exactly.
your team did. Uh,
Mhm.
I realize as I'm giving this advice that the introverts, non-public speakers out there are screaming right
Mhm.
now listening to this. Um, you know, speaking at a meeting is not the only way to enhance your brand. Presenting is not the only way to enhance your brand. You can also, um, send email updates, right? Like, "Hey, just wanted to fill you in on what we've been working
Mhm,
on," right? That, it doesn't always have to be, I'm gonna kind of get up on a stage, right, and and talk about the thing. There are other ways to highlight what you've done.
mhm. Yeah.
And you can specifically ask people to be your sponsors and say, "Hey,
Mhm,
um, I know that you're gonna be meeting about this project. I wanna make sure you mention XYZ, or would you mind bringing up XYZ?" And let them know,
mhm,
right? I'd like to be mentioned, right? Or you can let people know, "Hey, I wanna be given this credit."
mhm. Exactly, yeah. And that's the other thing. So also, it's so funny, and I think that one we should have an episode actually about that introvert way of moving forward versus the extrovert,
Oh,
whether it be in business or in corporate. Like we're going to do another episode on on branding in corporate as well. But when we're thinking
or
about it,
branding in business as well.
yeah, in business or in corporate, and
Nope.
but right in business as well. But that's the thing. It's like many times there are the introverts who are like, oh, but you know what? We can still step into, I have a friend who's like introverted as all get out, right? Like super, super introvert.
Yeah.
And so what she does is she shows up in different ways. So in a meeting where it's online, like it's on Zoom, she can like kill it, right? But a
Mm,
meeting where it's in person, she gets a little more she doesn't feel as because now it's like people are in her personal space.
mhm.
So I love the way you talked about email because it's like finding out where that fits for you,
Right.
especially as you're building your personal brand,
Yeah,
you know?
and yeah, it's your personal brand, so, like, take your own personal brand of this advice, right? So,
Exactly.
the main thing is decide what you want to be known for
Mhm.
and make sure people know it,
Exactly. Yep.
right? I mean, it sounds simple, but those are the 2 big things. So however you go about doing those 2 things,
Mhm.
that's building out your personal brand.
Ex
And it looks like, putting updates on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
right? "Hey, my team just did this. I'm so proud. I'm so excited."
Mhm. Yep.
"Oh, I'm happy to announce that I did this thing at work," right? You can
Mhm.
put that stuff out there.
Exactly, because your personal brand isn't just within your company.
Mhm.
Your personal brand, you're branding you across the board because now somebody else is seeing that on LinkedIn and saying, "Ooh, we want that in our company.
Right.
We would love that on our team."
Mhm.
So it's your personal brand overall, right? Because we ain't loyal to no companies.
Right. Well, and your mentors and sponsors might be out there also not at your company, right? You can be connecting with other people who value
Mhm.
what you bring to the table, and they could be speaking up for you in all kinds of rooms.
Exactly. Yep. And that's the other thing, because even thinking about because when you're letting folks know what you do, you want to ensure that folks at all levels know what you do. Because
Yeah.
many times, you're talking to your best friend, or your best work friend, about what you do, and they're at the same level as you, right? So them knowing what you do doesn't necessarily hold as much weight sometimes, depending on who they are, how they show up too, right?
Mhm.
Whereas if your boss's levels folks know who you are, or even your boss's level knows
Yep.
your personal brand and what you do. Now you end up on succession plans.
Yes. Yeah.
You end up on more succession
Exactly.
plans, right?
Well, and, I'm gonna add 2 things to that.
Mhm,
1, you also wanna let the people below you know what you do because you can mentor them, right?
mhm,
And there is so much to learn in teaching. So even,
mhm.
you know, developing mentorship or being that sponsor for somebody else, right? If people know what you do, they'll know, "Oh, that's what I wanna do. I wanna talk to you about it."
Yeah.
The other thing is not just letting people know what you do, but what you wanna do next.
Mhm.
Because people don't know what your goals are or where you're trying to go, and they might have an opportunity that would be perfect for you, and they just don't know that's what you're interested in.
Exactly.
So I wanna add
Yeah.
that piece, right? So let everybody know what you do and what you wanna do or what you're trying to do next.
Exactly. I love that so much. And what I also love is when you're talking about the folks who are quote unquote below, right? Like in a lower level
Mhm.
position, for corporate. Because there are situations like one one of my former clients, she was actually connected a lot with the folks on the manufacturing floor, right? And so she's talking to a guy who'd been there for 25 years, and she's or maybe longer, and she's having conversation, built a relationship with him, had conversations about what she wanted to do and who she was and what she was doing. Come to find out, this guy was the dad of someone who was higher up, right? Yeah,
Yes.
he's been working there forever, and I guess his
Mhm.
his son had come through the ranks and,
Right.
he's the dad of someone higher up, and because of that relationship, she didn't know he was the dad, but because of
Right.
that relationship, she ended up getting, his son, the guy's son,
Mhm.
ended up knowing exactly what she wanted, telling his son
Right.
about it, and
Right.
now it gave her different opportunities, to be in other areas. So
Yeah.
it's you just never know,
Oh,
you
and
know?
even when you said, like, your best work friend, even your friends outside of work, right? You don't know if I was talking to someone, she said that she mentioned to her neighbor what she does, and she's
Mhm,
like, "Oh, my husband's in that industry and what or my cousin," or whatever, like, you don't
mhm.
know what
Yeah,
kinds of connections people have, so,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, don't
So
talk
brand new
everybody's ear off if they don't wanna hear about it, but but in
Right,
general, let people
right.
know what you're trying to accomplish.
Exactly, and that's how you get to brand yourself, your personal brand within what you do in corporate, right? What you do you know, as a trade or whatever whatever we call it now, as a career, what your career is and what you want your career to be, like what your brand looks like.
Yeah.
So,
I love it. Well, let's leave it there, and yeah, I think we should definitely do, an episode from the business perspective, but also, what was the other one you were talking about? We should do an
yeah,
episode
introvert.
on introverts,
Right.
yes. Okay,
Yeah,
so stay tuned. Those episodes will be forthcoming as well.
yeah,
But, thanks for joining us on this one, and we'll see you in the next one.
yeah.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. If you want to hear more episodes like this one, subscribe wherever you're listening now.
And if you loved what you heard, be sure to leave us a review. And make sure you share the podcast with incredible Black women in your life so we can continue getting Black women paid.
All right, we'll see you in the next one.